You want to do the intro?
Let's do it.
3, 2, 1.
Freedom First Retirement Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Darren McComas, and I'm Sean Peel.
Yeah, thank you. Today is January 26th.
26, it's flying by. Yes.
Flying by. I can't believe it's almost February. Hey, we found this Forbes article. You know, we thought there was some really good information in this article. We wanted to kind of go through it. It was the top 10 retirement tips for 2023. We don't have time to cover all 10 of them. So we kind of condensed it down to the 5 you see highlighted in yellow, and we're going to hit each one in a couple of minutes. But I think it's, great information for our audience. So let's dig right into it. We're going to put a link to the full article in our show notes. So if you want to read the whole thing, you're more than welcome to. And again, all right, let's dive into number one, right? Understand your sequence of return risk. I think this is so important.
I think it's really important, especially with the volatile market we've seen in the last couple of years. Clients like, it's okay. It always bounces back. Well, yes and no. I think it more so really matters. And the chart does a really good job of showing us what happens compared to starting off on the right foot or maybe the foot of volatility.
Right. So, here's two retirees. Retiree A and B both retire with the same amount at the same time. One, the market, retiree A, the market cooperates and is very bullish, especially at the beginning, gets a 29%, year one in retirement, then
Love
an
it.
18, and then a 25, 3 great years to start off retirement. And ends up finishing after 25 years, with around 1.5 million.
A lot of money left. Yeah, just kind of market skyrocketed and really didn't look back. And then, of course, you had a few negative years at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
2, 3 bad years in a row, still a good ending. Retiree B, right? Luck didn't break that person's way.
No.
Started off retirement, chasing the market, but the market had some bearish years, -12, -21, and a -14. 3 really bad years. And unfortunately, even with some good years after that, including a 17%, after 13 years, retiree B is out of money. So same starting point, drastically different outcomes. And this is why we believe in retirement. You got to shift your mindset. And
you really do.
We meet with a lot of people. They're very proud of their portfolio. I think of one gentleman a few years ago that had 100% of his IRA in Tesla stock. I wonder how he's doing now.
Probably not as excited.
We used our financial planning software, Income Solver, just to model out what one bad year could do to someone's plan. And we had a couple with 1.3 million in various retirement accounts. And if the market cooperated, they had a 100% scope of coverage. All their needs and wants and goals would be met with, growth in the market. And they would end at age 90 was still, between $600,000 and $700,000. Looks great, right?
Doing fine.
If the market cooperates. But if we ran into some tough years, especially at the beginning, or just one bad year where you lost 30, 40%, of your retirement savings in 1 year. Now you're starting off retirement instead of with 1.3, you're starting off with around 750,000. Now your scope of coverage, right?
You're in trouble.
Yeah, 74% chance, which is not good enough for any of our clients.
Well, the things we always talk about around here, I mean, you guys are plugged into the analyst. We're talking about it. Why take the risk if you don't need to? We do this all the time in our classes. Most of you, right? Maybe you just don't know us and this is the first time hearing us, but most of you have enough money to do what you want when you want. You just don't need to take on the unnecessary risk.
No, and this is where I think we're going to hit this at the very end of the podcast, but having a plan, a real financial plan to see if your goals and your liabilities, what you need, matches with your investments. And sometimes they get so far out of whack that, you run the risk of really a couple bad years wiping out your whole retirement plan. Number 2 on their list was delay taking Social Security. The article talked about how, if you can, delay Social Security as long as possible.
Well, and right, you're going to get different opinions from everybody. You can use one of the calculators on the internet. What they don't know is about you and your family situation. They don't know what you might have for other forms of income. So again, we don't wing it. We put everything in the software. We want to make sure you are maximizing every single dollar. 96% of Americans make a mistake when it comes to claiming Social Security. So I think it's great to say, oh yeah, just delay it. Well, yes, that does equal more money in the long run. But guess what? If there's health concerns, if there's longevity issues, maybe there are other factors around where you can't delay it, and delaying it wouldn't be the right move.
And on the flip side, we meet with a lot of people, including a lot of our clients, that just want to turn it on as soon as possible.
Yes.
And a lot of times that is a bad mistake as well, because you're taking a severe haircut in the amount of that monthly check that comes in.
Well, you do a good job too of pointing out, well, it depends where the market's at also.
Mhm.
If you had some really good years in the market and great growth, awesome.
Yeah.
But if it's been choppy, volatile, and you've lost money over there, it's tough to keep taking money out of those accounts.
Yeah. A lot of factors go into that decision. I will say, don't make it an emotional decision.
Yes.
Let's run the numbers, and let's see what's right for you and your family. And here's a case where we're going to look at, with our software, we can see, based on an average life expectancy, long life expectancy, or a short life expectancy, what's the difference? And you can see with this scenario here, claiming early basically cut their Social Security benefits in half almost, versus just taking it at the primary or full retirement age. But then look at, if you delayed and lived a longer life, that number grew to 2.8 million over their lifetime for both husband and wife. So
you just can't wing it. You really need to have a plan. The numbers are drastically different. You look at the break-even point, which we always like to show.
Yeah, that purple line on this chart shows, where that break-even point is, at what point in your life is that. And, we don't have a crystal ball. No one knows how long they're going to live. But, if you have longevity in those genes, in that family history, then maybe delaying makes more sense. So this graph here, the red line is claiming Social Security early. Obviously, you're ahead because you're getting those paychecks for a few more years. But delaying, that green line till 70, man, that line shoots very vertical pretty fast, because it's a much bigger check. So you catch up pretty quick. In this case, it was around age 80. So, if you're going to live longer than 80, maybe delaying is a good choice. Of course, and also, we were just talking about this. In your 80s, into your 90s, are you really going to be needing that bigger check? Are you going to be traveling and living a more active lifestyle, or a more quiet lifestyle? So
there's a lot of factors that go into it, things that we're not even mentioning right now. But again, don't make an emotional decision. It is not your only income source for most of you. So you need to really look at the value you can gain from having a plan.
And we always say it's got to be part of a plan. We got to look at all the pieces to your individual retirement puzzle. And it really depends on how much other assets you have. You might have a pension, or you have a lot of 401k or IRA money that you can live off of to bridge that gap. Taxes.
Tax planning is a big one, right? I mean, you do have to remember that a portion of that Social Security check will count towards income, which means it's going to limit other options that you have to get more tax efficient within that portfolio. So again, we're barely touching the surface, but the 4 or 5 reasons we've given you to have a plan usually equals a big difference in the ending number.
Yeah, and that's the thing with these articles, right? They make it sound so simple.
Yeah.
We're saying, no, let's hit the brakes and really dive into it, run some numbers, and come up with the best decision for you and your spouse, really. Other good topic that they brought up in this article is rethink where you want to live. We've had a lot of clients, we're up here in Washington State, that want to get out of the craziness of our state and move to a warmer region, maybe different politics, right? And we also need, before you make that decision where you want to live the rest of your life, you got to look at the taxes in that new state. And it's probably going to be different than your current state.
Well, yeah, hopefully that's one of the things you're looking at, right? So again, you don't just pick up and move. You don't just turn on Social Security. We really do believe there are a lot of factors that when you're in the emotion of life, you don't necessarily think of. Our goal is to just take the emotion out of it and figure out what's best for you.
Yeah. And so smartasset.com has a great map of all the states and what the tax rates are. You can even drill down into a specific city to look at, local tax as well. So do some homework, talk with a professional, and see which state makes the most sense for you. The other, I think number 4 on our list, healthcare, right? How to have
this is a big one. And we keep getting a lot of clients that want to retire, get out of the corporate nonsense. And maybe you're under that Medicare age. Well, if you are, that means that there's got to be, there needs to be some sort of gap for healthcare. We know about Cobra. We know, like, one of our biggest clients, the guys coming from Boeing, they have great options there, but not everybody has those options. And I think the last handful of clients we've worked with, they kind of forgot about this piece.
it could be a big part of your budget each month. And you got to get on that marketplace and pick a plan.
It's like having another mortgage.
Yep.
It's very expensive nowadays for a husband and wife, $1,500 to $2,000 a month we've been seeing for.
Yeah, and another thing that factors into this too, if we're trying to do some tax minimization strategies, i.e. Roth conversions, that counts as income, that could affect how much you're spending monthly drastically on healthcare. So
because some of the states have income limits and you qualify for a very inexpensive health insurance if you don't have income. But if we're trying to do Roth conversions, that's going to give you income.
Yep. Pros and cons with every decision. So this was an interesting, Fidelity just did a study.
This is, yeah, it's a lot of money.
The cost of healthcare for a retired couple in the United States is going up from $300,000 to $315,000 is what they're estimating an average American couple will spend over retirement.
Well, and I have to think, right? Long-term care keeps becoming a bigger and bigger topic. A, because it keeps getting more expensive, and B, the policies now that are out and available are so much better than the stuff we had 10 years ago. So again, not only just a true medical cost like a copay, but one long-term care event. And they say 3 out of 4 Americans are going to deal with something like that. So again, if your plan isn't addressing this head on, that is one of the pieces to the puzzle that you need to have addressed.
Yeah, we always call it your blind side, right? You got to protect your blind side and make sure an event like a stroke out of nowhere doesn't wipe you out.
Which we've had a couple of clients go through that. And it's not only is it devastating, but it's a huge financial decision that takes place.
And one of the last topics they hit on was get professional help. And I can't agree more with this, right? They say the average American will spend more time planning for a vacation than they do for retirement. And this is where finding a good fiduciary financial advisor can really help. In fact, Vanguard did a big study a couple years ago. They called it Vanguard's Advisor Alpha Study. They said by using an advisor, you can gain an additional 3% net annual gain over not having an advisor.
Well, and I love this article, and not being a fiduciary advisor, being in the insurance field, I've always used this because you get a lot of people that have maybe done it themselves. You get people that have been in the 401ks and they're not used to paying an advisor. It really does itemize out what our firm does and the value that's added by working with a true professional. Because I would agree, if we can't add value and help you, then don't hire an advisor. But 3% over the next 15, 20 years of retirement is a big number.
Right. And we always say, find a good fiduciary advisor, and they should do a lot more than just babysitting your money. And unfortunately, we see a lot in our industry. We talk to a lot of people across this country. Their advisor literally just has them in a standard cookie cutter portfolio, doesn't ever make any changes to those investments. And if all hell breaks loose in the market like 2022, their only advice is just to ride it out. And you're paying a fee for that. We feel you need to have a lot more attention. And that's one part of the puzzle, but there's also the financial planning that comes in.
It's incredibly important. We just believe that you need to be in a proactive relationship. And when you just take taxes and volatility, those two things alone, the whole point of working with a professional, the reason I went to the doctor yesterday was to get his feedback and his opinion, not my own. So again, if that's not the relationship you're in, and we believe, say, taxes are going to go up, or our analysts believe, there's volatility coming in the market, explore your options.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, well, that's it on that article. Again, we have a link in the show notes if you want to read the full article on that. Wish we had more time to dive into all 10 of them. But we also wanted to talk a little bit about what we see going on in the economy as well as the market. So the economy, the labor market is holding tough, really. Jobless claims are staying pretty bullish. And really, the labor market just keeps chugging along. It's giving the Fed very little reason to veer from that path of higher for longer on interest rates. So this is a case where, good news, we should be celebrating that people have jobs and the unemployment lines aren't getting longer. But unfortunately, it's kind of this case where good economic news is bad news for the market. Another thing that no one seems to be talking about, which I think is super important when it comes to the market and what's on store for the rest of this year, is quantitative tightening.
Most definitely.
Right?
Yep.
For a long time, you could see it on this chart, that blue line from the financial crisis of 2008 to 2021 and COVID, right? The Fed was printing money at a scale we've never seen before. Well, now they're kind of playing this tape in reverse, and they're starting to unwind that through quantitative tightening. And so far, since April of last year, they've done 476 billion of tightening, meaning they're sucking this money out of the markets, financial markets, and just the economy. And to think that that's not going to have a negative impact at some point in 2023, I think is a little short-sighted.
Yeah, something we need to pay attention to.
Another data point we saw with the economy, PPI, that's producer price inflation. We saw that really start to decline, decelerate. We always pay attention to the rate of change of things. We're starting to see inflation really start to decelerate at a faster pace, so to speak. So this is good news for the average American. Prices are coming down as producers will price that in. Hopefully, of course, there was always a lag on that, but inflation is coming down, and except for one thing, I thought this was pretty interesting. Except for gasoline, our government decided to drain our strategic petroleum reserves last year, and now they're starting to fill those reserves back up. And then we have China reopening.
Exactly.
So you have one of the world's largest economies, kicking open the doors, and they're one of the largest consumers of oil and gasoline. And our country is refilling these reserves, and it's no wonder that just the gasoline is up over 18% in 1 month. So keep an eye on this. This will mean that inflation now, part of inflation,
it's going to jump.
Could be sticky and high, which we think will cause the Fed to also keep higher for longer. Now, we don't like to be Debbie Downers, but there's some.
We got to give you the information, though, right?
Yeah. So we look at a couple of things to see if we really are headed for a recession. That's the difference in the Treasury spread. So the 10-year and the 3-month is sitting at unprecedented lows. We're talking 132 basis points negative on the 10-year 3-month spread. Usually with almost 100% certainty, anytime that inverts, it follows a recession. You can see those gray lines in that chart. Those shaded areas are always recession. So here we are. Another indicator is the 10-year minus the 2 years. It is it is January. It's cold out, but minus 68.
That is very cold, by the way.
Minus 68 on the 10-year, 2-year spread. And it's just hard to wrap your mind. I can make more interest off a short-term instrument than a long-term.
Which makes zero sense. Yeah, that's not the way it's supposed to be, not the way it ever has been. And again, this goes back to traditional ways that the big banks and maybe other firms are doing it. That's not how we do it, because traditional doesn't work right now because it's not doing what it normally does.
The sirens are flashing. The red lights are flashing. Recession is either we're in it now or it's a high probability we'll get there in the second half of this year. Our analysts at Hedgeye are saying it's kind of the same thing. First quarter of this year, second quarter is also going to be in that quad 4 recession environment. So we're expecting some really choppy markets, wild swings up, wild swings down. That's a pretty typical of a bear market.
Yeah, take the emotion out of it. Just because you see the market bounce up, and this is what I'm consistently, have buddies that ask me, hey, what do you think? And I say, hey, just don't get caught up in the nonsense. Don't ride the emotions. And I do want you just to hit on one point. What are you and the team doing that's so different than everybody else when you say, okay, we're going to be in, quad 3 for the next couple of quarters. So what are you doing different?
When we get in that quad 4 recession environment, we don't go chase the market, right? We understand that bear markets have huge rallies. And, January is a great example. Like the NASDAQ is up 7-8% this month, but we think it's going to make a new lower high and then slingshot, down as this fizzles out. So we're not getting that FOMO because we know it's quad 4. We're going to stay with what works in quad 4 and be cautious and not get caught on the wrong side of the market doing a quick 180.
But then when the analysts, let's say we get into that third quarter and they say, hey, Darren, things are going to be better. Then what do you do then compared to now?
Yeah, when the signals start saying, hey, bullish, stronger economy, things are getting better, then we gradually, increase our risk and get into the kinds of funds and the kind of asset classes that have the highest probability of being successful in that setup. So we're actively managing. We're not day trading, but we are pivoting, trimming here, adding here, subtracting here, just to make sure we have the kind of the best lineup in your portfolio.
So no set it, forget it. It's an active game plan where you are unique and mobile, so you're able to pivot.
Absolutely.
That's what makes us different. I love that. Good stuff.
All right, one last piece of news here. We just got this morning. GDP rose 2.9% last quarter, so that kind of closes out 2022. That was higher than expected, better than expected.
Yeah.
The market shot up in the morning, and as of time of this taping, the market is doing a 180 because, this is where good economic news equals bad news, because the whole market is really trading off this Fed narrative that the Fed is going to pivot.
That's right.
And they're going to start cutting interest rates. And every time there's a good piece of economic news out there, why would the Fed pivot? Why would they, not raise rates more? The Fed knows they have to get inflation down. They see gasoline going up. They see the labor market tight. We need to probably keep rates high, go higher maybe. And that, I don't think the market has got their head wrapped around that yet, but it's coming.
It's always a little bit of a head fake, right?
Yep. So fortunately, good news is bad news and bad news is good news. And here it is, the markets. You can see the wild fluctuation. This goes back 6 months. Last fall, huge ramp in the markets, followed, right? Then it crashed in October, made a new low, rallies a little bit, and here we are. But look, 6 months, really, what have the markets done? Not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot,
S&P
right?
up 1.4 and NASDAQ down 1.6. And put a red arrow here. This is kind of interesting. This is where the markets really start to diverge. And you can see they were trading pretty tight for a long time, and then all of a sudden, the Dow Jones really started to outperform the other two. So interesting there. That's it really on the markets. We're going to continue with a more conservative approach. Just wait for more data to come out before we make any changes to being more aggressive. A couple really exciting updates for our current clients.
Yes.
We have tax documents are starting to come out. You will get an alert, an email from TD Ameritrade saying you have a 1099 form or you have a new tax document. You just log into advisorclient.com and download that. So be aware of those email alerts and go ahead and download those if you're wanting to get your taxes done. A thing I'm really excited about is eMoney. Our firm bit the bullet. We paid a lot of money, but we upgraded to the top financial planning software in our industry. eMoney, we think, is the Cadillac version of financial planning and a major upgrade for our clients. And we're excited. We're going to start rolling this out. We just got the license literally a couple of days ago, but we're going to continue to educate our clients on what that looks like and how that's going to work going forward. But major upgrade there.
I'm just proud of them, right? We just keep getting better, and that's our goal, to provide more and better service. And guess what? We're human. All of us need to continue to learn, and that's exactly what we're doing. So we're pushing forward. It's exciting stuff.
Yeah, and as we close out today's podcast, we have a couple live events. This was supposed to be on the 24th. We moved it to the 31st, just some scheduling conflicts. But Linwood Convention Center, Tuesday the 31st, 6:30 p.m. This is really, these live events are for people who have never attended an event before. So if you have a neighbor, a friend, a relative that is getting close to retirement, wants a second opinion, or just wants to hear what we have to say, reach out to my wife, Sammy, at retirementplusnw.com right there on the screen, and just shoot her an email of names and addresses and phone numbers, and she'll get a contact with them and give them some more information.
Yep, you bet. Love to see you guys there. And referrals were a phenomenal piece to our business last year. It's the best compliment we can have, so we appreciate that. Then another upcoming event for our locals here in Spokane, Washington, Tuesday, February 7th. So gentlemen, that's 1 week before Valentine's Day, so do not forget. 6:30 right there at Anthony's, beautiful area. And again, if you haven't attended, but people need help, push them in this direction. They're going to get some good food, have some good conversation, and learn some good things.
Yep, absolutely. We love our live events. It's always fun to meet new people. And for those of you, right, that maybe haven't watched our newest webinar, feel free. We're going to put a link up here on the screen. You can click on that and watch our latest webinar on YouTube. And you get to see about a 45-minute explanation of how we fight for that true financial freedom with our clients.
That's exactly right. It's important. People do have different and more options than what people might think. So yeah, tune in, watch that, play it at your own disposable time, and enjoy it.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. That way, every time we post something to YouTube or a podcast channel, you're going to be alerted and you can watch that. We're going to keep cranking these out. Our goal is to actually produce more in the coming months than every 2 weeks. Maybe do 1 or 2 a week.
Be awesome. Yep. You guys have a phenomenal day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.